Good afternoon. My name is Paul McElroy and I'm CEO of JEA. And it's an honor and privilege to speak with you this afternoon. I want to give you an update on Irma. As you know, Hurricane Irma devastated our territory starting Sunday evening and ran through Monday afternoon. It was a storm of historic proportions, both hurricane winds, rain, and flooding. The hurricane caused substantial damage to our electric distribution system. Many of our employees, along with many in the community, have lost homes, vehicles, and prized possessions. We are in the process of a significant restoration, the biggest restoration in Jacksonville's history. The storm caused catastrophic damage in Jacksonville, in Duval County, in the state, and in the region. At one point in time, there were over 6.3 million customers out of service in the state of Florida, joined by another 1.3 million in the state of Georgia. Over 7.5 million people sustained power outages in the southeast due to Hurricane Irma. This has established an absolute new record for devastation and destruction. Of those numbers, JEA customers reached 284,000 customers out of service at the peak of the storm. Now you know most of that and you have sustained that in your personal lives, and for that we feel with you. We're working alongside of you. We are part of the community and we're here to serve. We're working around the clock to restore services. So let's talk about three questions which I think are on everyone's mind. What are we doing to restore power? Where do we stand in that restoration process? And when can I reasonably expect my service to be restored? What we're doing to restore power is sort of a long-term plan. We didn't just start. We started years ago with a restoration plan and process, and we executed that plan on Friday night at 6 o'clock, establishing emergency status throughout the utility. All 2,000 JEA employees went to emergency status. We are now in the emergency control center for JEA. Many people took up positions here, myself included, that are very different than our day jobs. We are all here, all 2,000, plus additional resources, focused on nothing but restoring services. We increased our electric system distribution workforce by 700 people. So let me say that one more time. We have 2,000 regular JEA employees. We increased the electric system distribution workforce by 700 people, and we will increase that by another 100 people over the next couple of days. Their sole purpose is to restore electric services to you, our customers. They come from all across the country. They've come from as far as New Mexico and Missouri and Texas to help a sister utility and a community in need. Most of this temporary workforce was here during the storm. We pre-positioned them. We brought them in to Jacksonville, put them up in hotels, and got them here so we were ready to go as soon as hurricane force winds or tropical storm force winds ceased approximately 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon. So we weren't waiting to bring people in. They were here, and we had the full restoration force ready to go and restore services. We deployed most of these assets at 3 o'clock on Monday when the wind subsided and we could safely work in the environment. We also set out over 100 engineers and specialists to assess damage within our service territory, to give us an idea, to give us a book of work of what we had to do to restore services and restore our community. On Thursday morning, all assets were fully deployed in full restoration. We incorporated into that air support with helicopter aerial views of damage assessment to provide us a keen insight as to where the most destructive forces of winds occurred, especially with respect to our tree canopy. We then brought in drones to get into areas where we couldn't get in because of fallen trees or because of flooding, to do the assessment of what we had to do to repair the electric distribution system. We lost over 200 poles, have to be replaced, You can imagine the work necessary to do that. We've lost almost 300 transformers that have to be replaced, hundreds of miles of wire that have to be restrung. And it's a big, big effort with that hundreds, and at this point in time, over 1,000 people working 16+ hours a day to restore services. Construction night lighting has been brought in so we can continue to work overnight when the sun sets on construction projects that call for multiple hours and difficulty in setting up the process, so we can continue through in restoration. We have restored according to our plan and best utility practices. And so what that calls for is to make sure that we have the system there to support our customers. We start at the power plant, we walk the system down through our transmission lines to the substations within many of the neighborhoods within the community. After that, we start to restore services, and first and foremost are our essential services. And I'm pleased to say that the folks of JEA and the team we brought in restored 100% power services to the Duval County School Board early this morning. That's a key focus. Bring back the community, bring back the economic base. With all public service and major hospitals in place by early this morning and overnight last night, and we continue now to work on the major commercial centers and restore those remaining residential customers. Where are we in this restoration process? As I mentioned early on, we had 284,000 customers out of 462,000. So we had 61 or 62% of our customers were out. They lost service. And by 2 o'clock today, 47 hours into it, we had 100,000 customers still out of service. As you can see here, we're down to just in the next few hours here, we're down to 90,000 customers that are still out of service at 5 o'clock. We'll continue to work through the rest of the day. We have crews working tonight, and we will not stop until everyone's fully restored. I like to look at this a little different way, too. And we say that in terms of the book of work, restoring the 284,000, 65% of those have already been restored. It's actually a little bit north of that because these are 2 o'clock numbers, a little bit better than that, approaching 70% restored. And we'll keep the restoration here. 81% of our customers have power right now. We'll continue to work that number down. Now, we don't work in isolation here. We're part of an integrated grid with the rest of the state and the region. So we're working with our sister utilities that surround us and within the state. And so we're tracking and helping each other understand how restoration is going. And I can assure you that even though we got a late start because the storm came from the south and cleared in the southern part of the state much earlier than it did with us, we are ahead of the game. We are ahead in terms of restoration when we look at numbers of our customers that are in service and numbers of customers that we've restored service. Remember I said this was a catastrophic storm that affected the state and the region. And so we're going to watch that very keenly to make sure that we stay aligned with the state and the other utility crews across the state that are restoring services to their customers as well. The final question, which is on everyone's mind, and this one is a sensitive question. It's when will my power be restored? And I wish I had an absolute answer for all 90,000 customers that are still seeking service. What I can say is at this point, we need to beg for your patience. We're at the point in the process now, I think a day ago, we could have asked for it. Right now, we're pleading for your patience. We've got 1,000 people that are working in dangerous jobs 16 hours a day to restore service to you and the rest of our community. I know it's difficult, and I know it's going to get harder. And I know we listen to your calls, and please continue to call us and make sure, and we can make sure that we've got your ticket and that we recognize the importance of being caring and empathy, and we're going to get you restored as quickly as possible. I can say that we need another 24 or 36 hours of what I'll call brute force restoration in order to be more precise in terms of when we can really look at restoration. So once we work that number down a bit more, give us another 24 or 36 hours, we'll have a manageable number. We're bringing in more resources and match those up. And then I think we'll be able to give an idea for those that still might be out of power, when we can estimate time of restoration. So what I can say for those that are out of service, for those that can accept service, and we have to recall that this storm was of historic proportions, significant damage due to flooding and the wind ripping down wires that go from the pole to the house. So if a customer is prepared to accept service, having fixed all of those issues, I can say that restoration will be measured in days, and that's a lot better than a lot of places in terms of the state and the region in terms of the restoration process. So at this point, I want to thank you and plead for your patience. I want to thank you for your support. You've been very understanding. Jacksonville is a resilient town and a resilient community. It's led by a great mayor who has shown complete leadership, a fantastic governor, and both the mayor and the governor have been supportive of us every step of the way. Know that you have over 2,000 JEA employees that are focused each and every, not day, but hour, every minute of every hour, on restoration. They're not doing their day jobs. They're focused on restoration. We've brought in over 700 line and tree trimming workforce additions, and they will continue to grow until we can get the job done. We're here to serve. We're part of the community. We live with you. We shop with you. Our kids go to school with you, and we're here to support you and grow this community. Thank you very much for your patience, and I think we'll take a few questions now.
I wanted to know if, are there going to be some customers who will have to rely on an electrician to get their electricity back? I understand there are some situations where a line that runs directly to the house, if that line is snapped, there's not really much that you guys can do about that. That
is correct. On the customer side, at the weatherhead, we call it where it connects to the house if it's an overhead line. If that came down, the customer will have to seek an electrician to go ahead and get that set up for us to make the connection and to energize the line.
Are you guys also having a hard time finding specific lines that are down, or do you think you have a handle on how many lines that are actually destroyed?
I think we have a good idea right now in terms of both the location and the number of lines down, sort of a book of work that we're able to give our crews now as they go off and they start right at 7 a.m. each morning.
You were talking about the tree trimming services and how the tree trimming service individuals were being brought in. If there's a tree that's down near someone's house, do they have to get that tree removed, or are those people coming in to help take the trees away and then restore power?
Our objective now is to clear the rights of way where our lines are and poles are and restore that power within the system. We're not there to go on the customer's property to remove. That's got to be a private sector and owner's responsibility.
Where are the majority of outages right now, if you're looking at the map of Jacksonville?
Well, we have the map right here, and we've got outages down. We're still pretty well spread out. We've got to understand the storm, and one of the challenges of this storm, not only for us, but for the state, it covered everywhere. It was not one of even if we go back to Matthew, from a state perspective affected four or five counties. When we had Nassau, Duval, St. John's, down to Volusia County, in a significant way. And so the resources within the state we could call our sister utilities in the state and get some support. In this case, all 67 counties had some impact, from absolute major devastation to impact on this storm.
And what is the advantage of burying power lines? Does it keep people with power longer? Is it something that you guys would look into for the areas that have the power lines above ground?
We think there's two ways to look at that. If a line is buried, it's more resilient to wind, okay? Although it's much more expensive, approximately 5 times more expensive for a distribution line. But if you get severe flooding, and we live in the coastal area, the flooding and the underground utility causes a much longer restoration. So while you may have fewer wind-related outages, if you have a storm surge, it's going to be much more difficult to respond. And if you have a regular outage, it's much more difficult to find and repair. So it's a challenge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and be patient, and we're coming.